Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Eating the Elephant on this really nice Sunday afternoon. I hope you've all had a good weekend so far, and we're going to talk, as usual, about Hurricane Michael insurance information and some insurance recovery tips as we all try to eat this big elephant that is Michael recovery bite by bite. Several things this afternoon. I want to open a little bit off-brand, and we've talked about self-care in some of these previous episodes of this series. And I wanted to mention that my wife, who, don't tell her, she is the most amazing human ever. But we don't want to tell her this because she might realize that she's married to me. And that wouldn't go well. So what I do want to say about her is Angie does group fitness, and she's been a very well-respected trainer for many, many years. And as part of her contribution, I guess, to the recovery process, she has a new studio space over at the dance studio, at the Fred Astaire Dance Studio in the St. Andrews area. And for February, she's opening up all her classes for free. Everybody needs a little stress relief. It probably wouldn't hurt to turn your brain off for an hour and just move and sweat and kind of take your mind off things for a little bit. So if you need a little bit of stress relief, you can go to her page. She has a Facebook page, Group Fitness with Angie, and you can look at her schedule there. And like I said, get a little sweat on and some stress relief. You probably will not see me there. She is not going to trick me into getting into shape, but she's very good at what she does, and she has classes for all skill and fitness levels. But moving on, I've got a couple of tricks I want to talk to you about tonight. First of all, we've had several questions this week about contents and how replacement cost works, and I know we've talked some about it, but I want to briefly review it just a little bit. There's something that's very key that people need to understand. If you have old furniture, that doesn't mean you have to replace that furniture with old furniture. If you have replacement cost coverage on your contents, and almost all of you will, you're entitled to get new for old. You don't have to go out and buy a couch at Goodwill. You can go down to whatever furniture store and buy a brand new couch, and the increased cost of that, the insurance company is going to have to pay. They may pay it in more than one bite. You may get the actual cash value, the depreciated cost, or sort of the salvage value up front. And then when you actually pay a retailer or someone and you buy the piece, then you'll get the rest of that money back. So you may have to front a little bit, and it may be a little bit of a shuffle, or you may have to just discuss it with your adjuster. And what you might be able to do is submit invoices for what you're proposing to buy, and they'd be able to, your adjuster may be able to front you the money. You can also go out, and I know there are a number of places out there that are doing 3 months, 6 months, a year, no interest. So you can go out there, you can get the furniture, get it moved in, and then in 30 days get your check for the insurance company, write that check over to the store and pay it right off. It's up to you. But the key item that I really do want to stress is it's like, kind, and quality. If you have, say, a desk you got at Walmart, and it's that sort of press board that sort of looks like compressed industrial waste that we've all got, and you got a $179 desk, you cannot then go out and expect to buy a $3,000 oak Chinese antique desk and expect the insurance company to replace that. However, that said, if you do have such a desk, a really, really nice oak desk, then you need to have an oak desk that's of like, kind, and quality to replace that. And the fact that you have something that's very nice or very expensive isn't your problem. Your adjuster needs to pay those bills, and you're entitled to be put back in the same position you're in before the storm, so please remember that. I want to talk to you today about some resources on the web, because we've had questions about permits and values. We've had questions about flood insurance, and I want you to be able to educate and advocate for yourself and find these resources on your own. There's two websites I want to talk about. The first one is the Bay County Property Appraiser's website. Very easy to find. If you just Google Bay County Property Appraiser, the very first entry there is the one you want, and you're going to want to click on search. And if you click on that, it will take you to a page that you'll have to accept some statement. I don't remember what it is, but click on that and say, yes, I accept the above statement. It's some limitation, I'm sure, that was written by a lawyer. But if you'll click that, it will take you into the search parameters for the Bay County Property Appraiser's website. And there's about 5 or 6 little blue links on your left, and you can search by name or parcel number or property address. The easiest, in my opinion, is searching by name, although if you have a very, very common name like Smith, you may want to search by property address. And it may take you a little bit of time to get the hang of that, because you have to put the address in the system in a very particular way. So just play with it for a little bit until you can get there. Once you do that, it will very likely pull up a long list, particularly if you search by name. It will pull up a list of properties. And when you see the one that's yours, on the very left-hand side is the parcel number. And what you'll want to do is you'll want to click on that, and that's a live link. And that takes you to what we're going to call the main page for your property with the property appraiser. And so that shows a bunch of data. It shows who the property owner is, the address, where they send the bill for your taxes, things such as that. It'll give a brief legal description, a bunch of information about the property. I want to focus on two particular items. If you look at that page, maybe a quarter to a third of the way down there, across the middle, there's some gray buttons. One of those buttons is called the Card View Print, C-A-R-D, Card View Print. And if you'll click on that, it brings up a mess of a page. It's all text. It looks like old ASCII code for those of you that are computer nerds. But what I do want you to think about is not look at the mess. Look toward the bottom right, say the bottom right quarter of the page. And there's one place there, it's pretty small, and it's in all caps, and it says Permits. And there's space for the last two permits. And it'll tell you if you've had work done on your house. Say if you had a new roof put on after the storm, it will say re-roof, and it will have a date that happened. And if you're interested in finding information about whether a permit was pulled for work on your house, that's a really good place to find it. And if you don't see a permit there, and you had structural work, or you had roof work, electrical work, something such as that, then that's something that you need to call the building department about, and you need to see what you can do to address the problem. I don't have an answer for that. We are going to be looking, and we're going to be talking to the building department. And certainly we'll post information on our webpage, and we'll probably put something in a future Eating the Elephant episode. But it's an ugly, ugly page, like I said, and be patient and just keep looking until you find the section that says Permits. And it's all caps, and it's a very small section, but it does give you good information. If you go back to what we called the main page, to where you saw those gray buttons across the middle, another one I want to bring you to, I want to make sure I get the name exactly right, there's a button that says Show Parcel Maps. And what happens when you click on that button is it pulls up a map of Bay County with your parcel in the center bordered in red. So this shows your property. And there's something that you can get here that I think is worth having. If you look at this page, on the far left, there are an awful lot of checkboxes for selections for various things that are available to you. There's a ton of data available on this site. But what I want to point out right here is that toward the bottom of that list is a checkbox for flood zone. And if you check that box and give it 3 or 4 seconds to reload, what will happen then is it will show the flood zone for your area. It shows the border of the flood zone. Now, if you're very, very close to being what most people call in a flood zone, meaning a flood zone A or a flood zone V, it'll actually show you the line drawn through your neighborhood and maybe even through part of your property. It's very important to know that if that line intersects your property but not the actual footprint of your building, then you're likely not affected by the increased hazard of a flood zone A or V. You're probably in what's known as a flood zone X. You are still in a flood zone, you're just in a relatively low hazard flood zone. This can give you some very basic information. If flood zone is a big concern of yours, if you need to know the base flood elevation for your neighborhood, the elevation that you're going to be required to rebuild at, should you have to rebuild your home if you've got more than the 50% damage rule. We've talked about that in previous episodes. I'm not going to review that again, but I want to give you one more way to search for this information that's a little more accurate and a little bit more detailed. In your Google bar, you want to type in FEMA Maps, F-E-M-A Maps, and the first thing that's going to come up in your Google search is the Flood Map Service Center from FEMA. This is actual government data. It's a government website. And what you're going to do when you pull up this very first page on the Flood Map Service Center is on the far left there's going to be several selections. You want the MSC Search by Address. MSC, that's Map Service Center, Search by Address. You're going to click on that and it's going to give you a search bar and you can type in your address. And what it should pull up for you is something that looks very much like Google Maps with a little Google Map pin there. And you may have to zoom out to get the kind of data that you need, particularly if you're in the very middle of a very large flood zone. But what you can do as you begin to zoom out is you'll see different flood zones in that area, and you'll see, let's say you are in a flood zone X, you'll see how close you are to a flood zone A and what the base flood elevation is for that flood zone. And if you are in a flood zone, it'll show the BFE, or it may say EL elevation, something such as that, but there will be a number there. And if it says 7.5, then the minimum elevation that's allowed for you to build a home in that area is 7.5. That's the base flood elevation for that area. And you'll need to build at or above that level. And if you've got any other questions, I of course would say call the federal government, but getting somebody on the phone is a real challenge. It's a lot better to call the local building department. You can call Wayne. Well, there's lots of folks. You can call anybody down at the building department, and they can give you lots and lots of help. But it doesn't hurt you to go ahead and do some of this research on your own. And again, have some education so you can better advocate for yourself. We've talked about this over and over again. Educate, advocate, escalate, and when you need to, mediate. You want to educate yourself as best you can. You want to learn the things that you can learn, and not just by looking at Facebook or these videos, but get very different sources from different points of view and try to learn about it. You can advocate for yourself. You have to keep your foot on the gas, and you have to advocate for yourself with building officials, with adjusters, with your insurance agent, if you happen to have a PA, your contractor. You need to advocate for yourself. If you need to escalate, if you need to go to a supervisor, to a vice president, anyone up the food chain, as far up the food chain as you need to go to get what you need to do that. And at the very end, if none of that works, then you need to mediate. And we've talked about this before, and that's going to the CFO's office and asking them for their free mediation service. It's paid for by your tax dollars, and they can mediate on your behalf. I think that's all we've got for you this week. We'll be back on Wednesday. I hope you have a great week until then, and let's look forward to some sunshine this week.